Continuing with the discussion, sir. You were speaking about stereotypes and the issue of stereotyping. The JNU incident brings to my mind a very pertinent question regarding the issue of stereotyping. Apart from Kanhaiya, the two other men who were arrested, Umar Khalid and Anirban Bhattacharya. After Umar was arrested, we saw certain media houses speculating over his association with various Islamist terrorist groups. And then after that, we saw a number of newspapers carrying articles where they carried interviews of his father saying that he is not a believer, he does not pray, he does not fast. Basically, he is not a practicing Muslim. We did not see such kind of things happening with the context of Anirban. I mean, nobody really bothered to go and ask Anirban's father if he believes in any particular narrative or ritual of Hinduism. So don't you think that when we are trying to break these stereotypes, we are replying or engaging with them in their terms, in the terms of those stereotypes?
See, again, you ask a very difficult question. It's true कि पहले तो कहा गया कि उमर खालिद जो है वो कश्मीरी है, फिर किसी ने देखा कि उमर खालिद तो अमरावती महाराष्ट्र से आता है, तो मेरे न्यूज़ रूम में भी किसी ने कहा अरे सर ये तो महाराष्ट्रन है, तो मैंने कहा हाँ, अरे सर हमें तो लगा कश्मीरी है. यानी द स्टीरियोटाइप इज if you have slogans of Azadi, then you must necessarily, and you're a Muslim with a beard and you must be a Kashmiri. How can you be from Maharashtra? So the stereotypes do exist. I don't deny that. And you're right when you say Anirban has not been subject to that kind of sort of cross-examination that an Umar Khalid will be. Having said that, and I would say this to this audience also, you will have to emerge out of that, we will all have to emerge out of the trap of victimhood. कि हमारे खिलाफ समाज है, कि हमारे खिलाफ मीडिया है, जो मीडिया है वो बार बार हमें स्टीरियोटाइप करता है. एक सेक्शन ऑफ द मीडिया है, मैं नहीं इससे इनकार नहीं कर सकता, बट इससे ये कहना कि पूरा मीडिया जो है स्टीरियोटाइपिंग में फंसा हुआ है या पूरा मीडिया जो है वो एक तरफा है, ये भी गलत होगा. And as a result, you then get into some kind of a victimhood trap, which is very, very dangerous. So it is, one is reinforcing the other. One section of the media is obsessed with stereotyping, and then a section of the community also gets obsessed with that to the point where they also are unable to emerge out of a trap of victimhood. So I think this is actually again a challenge. A, for the media, but B, for society. Society also has to start recognizing, Muslim society has to recognize, Indian society has to recognize that, let us move out of these broad generalizations. कि पूरी media जो है एक तरफा है. Please trust me, there are lots of people in this country who do not approve, do not appreciate stereotyping, who are resisting it, who are fighting it at great cost to themselves. And there is a need perhaps to encourage those voices, to give them more strength. वो आप ही दे सकते हैं. So this is actually a challenge that we all have to face together. To answer your question, and Umar Khalid's case is a good example of the kind of stereotyping that goes. But there are responsible newspapers, there are responsible channels, there are responsible websites also, which today, do provide alternative narratives as well. एक ही narrative नहीं है. And we have to come out of that trap कि एक ही narrative इस देश में है, which sees an Umar Khalid necessarily is, and Umar Khalid also fell into the trap. Umar Khalid जिस दिन surface हुआ, वो कहता है, yes, I am a Muslim, but I am not a terrorist. Why did Umar Khalid need to say that? Kanhaiya didn't say that. So Umar Khalid, in a sense, had fallen into the trap. It's not easy. I'm not trying to say it's easy, but I'm saying that we have to recognize that there is a trap out there. ये आपके लिए एक trap है. ये हम सब के लिए एक trap है. कि किस तरह के से समाज को एक stereotype में बंधा जाए. And we have to emerge out of that.
Sir, moving on to a little different question. In 2006, the CSDS did a survey of around 35 media houses in Delhi, and it found that none of these media houses, both English as well as Hindi, had in a decision-making position either a Dalit or an Adivasi. So even today we find the representation of Dalits in the mainstream media very minuscule. So do you feel that their lack of representation also affects the way in which Dalits are represented in the mainstream media? If I can quote a little bit of an example, every year we have the Ambedkar Jayanti happening at the Parliament Street, which is the heart of the national capital. But we do not find the similar amount of pomp, the similar amount of celebration in the mainstream media as we would usually do with other celebrations. Do you feel that this has got something to do with their representation?
You know, the danger of the argument you are making is you will reduce the media to what politics has become, about symbolism and tokenism. यार एक दलित एडिटर बना दो सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा. दुनिया ऐसी बदलने नहीं वाली. You know, I often women editors are the worst oppressors of their own women colleagues. I have seen that. Trust me, it is not as if a woman editor comes in and suddenly the entire newsroom turns gender sensitive. It is not as if you have one Dalit editor and suddenly we will recognize that there are alternative narratives which will challenge the established narrative. It doesn't happen like that. And I don't think it will. Look, Ambedkar today or Ambedkar Jayanti is celebrated, there is a greater recognition today of Ambedkar than there was in his lifetime or even in the immediate years after him. Because society is changing. The idea of equality of opportunity, which was the great Ambedkar idea, is an idea whose time has come. It has nothing to do whether there is a Dalit editor in the newsroom or not. लोग जान गए हैं कि unless you talk of equality of opportunity, it is no longer, your politics is limited, your politics is stunted. So Ambedkar Jayanti will be celebrated, Ambedkar will be lionized, not because Dalit editors or Dalit people have come onto the desks of news channels. It is because Ambedkar himself, the idea that Ambedkar represents today is so powerful. As far as Adivasis go, I am there willing to accept that the absence of Adivasis or Adivasi voices in mainstream media mean that Adivasis have been completely marginalized out of the discourse. And frankly, where are the narratives of what is happening in tribal society in this country? They just don't exist. Jharkhand today, and I will tell you an interesting story. I have a stringer in Jharkhand. उसके घर में वो राम की पूजा करता है, कृष्ण की पूजा करता है और साथ साथ उसकी महेंद्र सिंह धोनी की पूजा करता है. उसके एक मंदिर है और मैंने उसको पूछा कि why do you pray to महेंद्र सिंह धोनी? तो वो कहता है सर अगर महेंद्र सिंह धोनी रांची से नहीं होता तो कोई न्यूज़ चैनल मुझे नहीं कहता कि कुछ मुझे झारखंड से भेज दो. So in India's state with the largest tribal population, we have reduced the news narrative to Mahendra Singh Dhoni or Rajput. There is no Adivasi, there are no stories of what is happening in tribal society in Jharkhand at the moment. That has nothing to do possibly with the fact that there are no Adivasis in the newsroom, but I think if there were Adivasis in the newsroom, if I had more diversity in newsrooms, maybe you would be able to hear more voices. So it is possible but not with so much with Dalits, but I think with Adivasi voices, you can see generally across newsrooms, there's a silence. There's a complete silence when hearing and finding out stories about what is happening in tribal India.
All right. Sir, I would like to continue a bit on this question of Dalit and Adivasi. We recently had a very young Dalit activist, Rohit Vemula, committing suicide at the Hyderabad Central University. And quite rightly, students, academicians, and concerned citizens all across India were outraged over what had happened. But to my understanding, this outrage was it had got more to do with why a student in a place like a university was being hounded to the extent that he had committed suicide. What I mean is that we perceived the suicide of a Dalit student in the same terms as we would perceive the suicide of an upper caste or a more privileged caste student. We really did not take into account the kind of hassles that probably Rohit had to go through in order to get into a privileged place like one of the best universities of India. We really kind of obfuscated that entire aspect of Rohit's suicide. And this brings me to the question that don't you feel that there is a question of class involved here? Because what Rohit's suicide is certainly very tragic, and it must be the factors that led to his suicide must be condemned. But we have something happening on almost a regular basis in North India, in the villages of Uttar Pradesh, where Dalit women get raped and they are forced to commit suicide out of shame and ignominy. But we do not see that kind of an outrage, that kind of an of a media covering of these issues to the extent that Rohit has received. So do you believe that it has got to do with the way how we perceive this entire power structure of caste and how it's represented?
You know, again, I am not convinced. I still believe that when it comes to the question of social justice and Dalits in particular, the media hasn't done a bad job. You know, I think the media, in a sense, has raised issues of social justice from time to time. You know, it would be unfair again to say कि आप लोग, you know, your entire questioning is कि आप लोग बहुत बुरे लोग हो. You know, हम बुरे हैं. मैं कोई नहीं कह रहा कि हम कोई अच्छे हैं, कोई आसमान से आए हुए लोग हैं. We come from a society in a sense, and many of the prejudices, the class biases of society reflect in the way the media also operates. There's absolutely no doubt about that. The Rohit Vemula case, frankly, there have been other Dalit students who have also committed suicide in the past. I think the Rohit Vemula case got disproportionate coverage because of the politics that accompanied it. You see, the politicization of every issue in this country determines the scale of media coverage increasingly. If Rahul Gandhi, if Arvind Kejriwal had not gone to Hyderabad Central University, would the issue have been sustained in the public imagination for as long as it has? There's a question mark. I think that is the real issue here. It's not as if the media would not take up the cause of social justice and Dalits. The media does take them up. But when the politics comes into it, then the issue becomes controversial, adversarial, and that's when the media says, you know, we are now going to sort of be there 24/7. Because please understand, media's attention span now is very limited. We are in the what I call McDonaldization of media. आपको McDonald's का बर्गर मिलता है, उसी तरह से आपको खबरें मिलती है. एक खबर अब 1 घंटे के लिए ताज़ा रहती है, दूसरे घंटे में आप किसी दूसरे खबर पर चले जाते हैं. So Rohit Vemula's story, for example, sustained in the public imagination because it became political. Had it remained just the suicide of a Dalit boy in a Hyderabad Central University with no accompanying political surround sound, वो story वहीं दब जाती. So that's really, to my mind, where the issue lies. It's not as if the media in the past has not gone and campaigned for the rights of Dalits in different parts of the country, whether it is temple entry, whether it was the rights of Dalits to lift water from the wells. These are issues which at different times the media has taken up. Media has taken up issues of discrimination, whether against minorities, whether against Dalits, they have. There is a rich tradition in this country of the media taking up these issues. The problem is the media's attention span now is limited. इसलिए you have to now in some way आपको story बड़ी बनानी पड़ती है. How do you make a story big? और मैं आपको एक उदाहरण देता हूँ. In August last year, I was in Manipur, and Manipur was under curfew. And those Manipur tribal protesters came to see me and said, "Sir, इतने दिनों से हमारे protest हो रहे हैं, किसी national media पर कुछ हो नहीं रहा है." तो मैंने उनसे कहा कि अगर आप आपकी स्टोरी नेशनल मीडिया पे दिखाना चाहते हो तो आपको कुछ बड़ा करना पड़ेगा. 2 दिन बाद एक स्टूडेंट प्रोटेस्टर ने मुझे एक व्हाट्सएप मैसेज भेजा एंड उसमें फोटोग्राफ था, दे हैड बर्न्ट द एमएलए's हाउस, उन्होंने आग लगा दी थी और उसने मुझे व्हाट्सएप पर यह भेजा, सर द एमएलए's हाउस हैज बीन बर्न्ट, will the story now make national headlines or not? And frankly, it was frightening because it really, I mean, I had said, आपको story बड़ी बनानी पड़ेगी purely out of, you know, just to try and sort of give him a sense that you will have to stay with the agitation. मुझे नहीं खबर था कि मैं उससे ये कहने से वो किसी एमएलए के घर जाके उसके घर को जला देगा. Fortunately, the MLA was not at home. But the fact was that a person in Manipur, in Churachandpur, not even Imphal, Churachandpur believes that the only way his story will make national headlines is if he burns the house of the MLA. So the same thing, if Rohit Vemula, I can understand why there are protests, because the protesters have realized कि जब तक हम इसको बड़ा नहीं बनाएंगे तब तक आप कहेंगे दलित सुइसाइड हो गया. So I think that is the problem. The problem is our failure to try and understand that every story deserves to be told. We are a country with millions of stories. लेकिन हम obsessed हैं कि जो दिल्ली में होता है या बंबई में होता है. So that we come back to where we started off. That's where the problem is. It's not about that we are not empathetic. Journalists have empathy. Journalists have a sense of standing by the underdog. But because of the way the system now works, there is less and less space for those stories.
All right. We are almost coming to the end of this wonderful conversation that we are having with Rajdeep Saab. Last question, sir. In the last few years, we have seen a tremendous rise of convergent journalism in India. Probably this has got to do with the larger penetration of internet. We see a large number of media portals running online, and they too, I believe, has created an alternative space for discussion and news dissemination. How far do you believe to what extent do these convergent media spaces would be viable in India, and what role do you feel they would play in carrying out stories which are probably not carried out in that vigor in the mainstream media?
Look, my dream is that this is a country with 634 districts or 624 districts. I think 634 districts. India has 634 districts. Every district of this country should have one citizen journalist जो रोज एक story भेजेगा, and that story will play out on this mobile handset. You can choose which district you are from. आपको पूर्णिया की story चाहिए, आपको पूर्णिया की story मिलेगी. आपको story चाहिए चूराचांदपुर की, आपको चूराचांदपुर की story मिलेगी. That's not going to happen on television. That might happen on a more digital platform, which is cheaper, which is perhaps more effective. Like this young boy from Manipur, send me a WhatsApp image of those pictures. In the age of the WhatsApp, in the age of Facebook, in the age of Twitter, there is no monopoly of news. No one has a monopoly of news anymore. So once the news monopoly is broken, I think that will, in a sense, create some kind of bottom-up pressure. Jahan stories will come from different parts of the country, not necessarily from television studios. See, the television revolution in this country really started in the mid-90s. अब वो धीरे धीरे खत्म हो रहा है. ये 20 साल तक चला है. Now you have a great opportunity in a way to actually use the internet to challenge that revolution. Revenue model, I don't know. I don't know how anyone is making revenues on internet. But if you forget the revenue model, purely in terms of content, you can be disruptionist and you can disrupt the way mainstream media now functions by becoming a citizen journalist. Each of you has the power to tell a story today. So today when you are in Aligarh and you want to tell the story tomorrow, let's say of something that's happening in AMU, this country should have a website or an app where you can just put out your story and it's available to whoever wants to see it. And that's going to happen. In the next 10 years, handheld devices, we have 250 million, maybe now 300 million. That will change the future of this country. हमारा ज़माना खत्म हुआ, नया ज़माना आ रहा है.
Thank you, sir. It was indeed a pleasure talking to you. A huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Rajdeep Sardesai. He has really been incisive, and with his academic depth, he has answered us. And now we'd have a short question answer session of around 10 minutes. The mic is there, our volunteers are there. Please be brief in your questions and be direct because we are running short of time. A 10-minute short question answer session.